is what we need upon us. Let them come together with the unity among us. Unity, it's a unity. Yana, this a good world, you know what I'm saying?
Umoja ni nguvu, utengano udhaifu, tukisimama.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Stephen Adams. I'm honored to have a conversation here with Mr. Richard Lawson, who, you know, to say he is an actor, a producer, an entrepreneur, an activist is really not enough. He's a visionary too. And this guy, I mean, even that is not a word, I think, that completely encompasses all that you do and all that you've done. You've had a fascinating life and you have a fascinating future ahead. So let's maybe start at the beginning and talk about your origins as an artist and the kind of path you've led through life.
Well, first of all, I'm very grateful to be here and really honored that you are the one that's interviewing me. This is a new relationship that we have just created with Theo as well, and I couldn't be more excited about the present and the future. So, how did I become an artist? I didn't really plan on being an actor. I went to college, I played football, I was going to be a lawyer. And so...
It's kind of the opposite of being an artist in a way.
Well, it's a performance. It's performance art. You know, being a lawyer is performance art to a degree. So I was in college. I dropped out to go into business, to be an entrepreneur. The military discovered that I dropped out. I got drafted. I went to Vietnam. I was there for a year. I was a combat medic. I found out that I could get out 3 months early and go to college if I went to college. So the shortest distance was with a community college, a junior college. I went there and I said, well, I want to be a lawyer. There's nothing at junior college that's actually going to take me in that direction except debate. So I joined the debate team. Became a state champion, undefeated. The drama coach asked me would I want to do this musical called Golden Boy. I did. And it was in the middle of that musical that I had a revelation that this is what I was put on this earth to do, that this was my purpose. And
excuse me, I want to interrupt here.
Yeah.
How did you go from being on the debate team to being in a musical? Because that is a bit of a leap.
Well, because I was, I joined this woman asked me to be in this Reader's Theater. And I did. And then from that, I went into forensics, which was competitional speech. And then I became the state champion in that. I was undefeated in that. Then the drama coach, based upon my speech acumen, wondered whether I would be interested in being in this musical. And I said, why not? And it was from that, studying dancing, singing, acting, that it influenced me to stay in the business. So I became an actor. And from that day to this one, I have been on vacation for 50-some years.
They do say that if you do what you love, it never is a day of work.
Never a day of work. And I've done what I've loved, and this is what I do, and I don't need a lot of sleep because I'm so excited every day to get up to do what it is that I love.
So let's talk about the adventure from, I mean, you're saying you're starting back in the late 60s, and you're still thriving to this day. That's an achievement unto itself.
Well, it's a marathon, you know, but because I was running a race that I wanted to run, it wasn't work, you know. When I got into business, you know, it was really kind of a desert in terms of opportunities for black actors or actors who happen to be black. And so the parts, you know, in theater, yes. In film and television, there were the stereotypical kind of parts. There was black exploitation, as they called it, and I got some of those jobs. You know, my first job was Scream Blackula Scream, where I played a vampire, and then and I did Sugar Hill and other movies that was of the day, but but I recognized early on that the path to my own destiny was one that I was going to have to create myself. I couldn't depend on the industry to do it for me. So I became an entrepreneur. I produced plays that I was in. I started doing short films and really carving out my own path.
I want to take a moment to put a circle around what you're saying, because something that comes through is like this attitude that you have, this positive attitude of saying, okay, this door isn't open, so I'm creating my own door.
Right.
That's not something every creative shares. We have a lot of people who suffer because they either don't see that it's possible or don't try to make it possible. They wait for someone else to validate them.
Right. Well,
where did that come from in you?
It's an interesting thing. When I went to Africa a couple of years ago, to Ghana, the year of the return, celebrating 400 years of the return, and I went into the slave dungeons, and I had just recently discovered that I was 30% Nigerian and 20% Ghanaian. So in being in the dungeon, I recognized that I was standing on my own DNA. And I connected that to my great grandfather, who bought himself out of slavery and then went back and bought his brothers and sisters out of slavery. And then I looked at my mother, who worked 16 hours a day for 16 years, and I recognized the resilience in terms of people being able to survive the impossible. And I had always known that, but that was a confirmation for me that in terms of being able to survive, and as I like to say, the ability to turn chicken shit into chicken salad, that it's up to me to make things go right and up to me to determine my own destiny and not be at the effect of my fate, which is oftentimes created by external conditions. I'm responsible for my own condition. Everything that happens to me, I'm responsible for it. And so therefore the condition of the business was not bigger than me. When I walked in those rooms, I knew that my job was to change that person's mind and to get him to see me as I saw myself. And so therefore, there was never any stop in me. No is a motivator. No turns me on. And so therefore, I'm going to make it go right. If I come upon the China wall, I'm going to figure out how to go over it, how to go under it, how to go around it, or how to go through it, using my relationship map. Who do I know that has a bomb? Who do I know that has a plane, or a helicopter, or a hot air balloon, or a caravan to go around it, or dig a tunnel under it? And so it's been just no stop.
I love that, and I love the fact that you're finding that resilience and that value in the Black American experience, because so many of us are taught to look at that as something that we should devalue or forget.
Right.
But in actuality, you're finding strength in it and resilience, and also probably the reality is like, as difficult as it is to carve out a creative career, it is not as hard as being a slave or surviving the Middle Passage. So
right.
By perspective, we are in one of the most elite and least necessary but most necessary kind of areas in the world.
No question about it. It's really is in terms of understanding who you are and really understanding and placing a value on yourself, maybe even greater than it actually is, in terms of what, when you look at what's possible, you have to understand that it's going to take a Herculean effort to get there. I've always heard people talk about the struggling actor. I resent the concept of a struggling actor. Challenged? Yeah. But a challenge is something that you can figure out how to overcome. To struggle is to mean that
it's almost like drowning.
Yeah, you're at effect to it as opposed to being at a cause over it.
Okay. You see, again, what I'm getting from this is like you are always leaning towards finding and achieving and maintaining and growing power, personal power. And I think, to go further, I think as Black people, wherever we are in the diaspora, we're all decolonizing ourselves on a regular basis. So part of colonization requires that your mind be subject to another person's values. Right. So I love hearing what you're saying. And I think that's applicable to anybody, really, at the end of the day. Whether you're talking about a woman's struggles or, as we discussed yesterday, different abilities, all these things have been sort of suppressed over the centuries. Right,
exactly. Which is one of the motivations for me to direct the film that I directed, Black Terror, which is about revolution. And revolution in the sense of, not military revolution. That's not a war that can be won. We don't have the material, the firepower, the technology to fight that battle. This is not Algiers where, we can, or Afghanistan or Vietnam when they are tunnels and you can hide and territorially you can take advantage, but it's not that. They control where we live in terms of the communities, they can surround that. No, that's not a war we can win, but the war and the real revolution has to be in terms of the way we think. It has to be fiscal, it has to be political, it has to be social, it has to be spiritual revolution now more than ever, because at the bottom line, when you look at the erosion of every advancement made for Black people, affirmative action, Roe versus Wade, all the other things that's being eroded right now, we have to retool our thinking and almost go back to a time when we were segregated, so that because when we were segregated, we owned our own banks. Our doctors were in the neighborhood, the lawyers were there, plumbers, the vendors, there was community, there was trust, because we had to. And then when we assimilated, we lost that. We lost a sense of legacy, history. We no longer have 3 generations in the family, so grandparents are the ones that teach you about your history. They're not there, and so we have to rediscover that, and that really comes out of the whole sense of resilience that I reconnected with when I went to Ghana, and have understood in my family all along that when I look at the future 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, my question is, well, what's going to happen to our children? What's going to be there in terms of their survival? So I guess what I'm really doing is using my art as a form of activism to be at cause over my own and our own destiny. And that's something that I recognized early on as an artist, that I had to be control of my own destiny and not get in line and hope that somebody invite me to their party. It's like we have to create our own. And
you can spend a lifetime doing that.
You can spend a lifetime doing that. And there's not, when you're waiting in line for somebody to say, okay, you can come in, it's like it doesn't really give you a lot of sense of self.
Right. So talk to us about the organization you have that is producing all these things. You're doing all sorts of very interesting, dynamic things with your your
Yeah,
business?
my wife and I created a foundation, if you will, a nonprofit 501c3 called Waco Theater Center. Waco stands for Where Art Can Occur. And in the 6 years of our existence, we've done some pretty amazing things. You know, we've created partnerships with other companies. We mentor over 100 kids. To see the change in these young people is really just amazing. Where a lot of these kids at one point couldn't see beyond the edge of their zip code, now they're able to imagine and dream and to see what's possible in the world and become conscious and really inclusive and really understanding the sense of sisterhood and brotherhood. We do full-on productions. We are partnering in a production in Watts now with Marty and the Hands That Could, a co-production with a Watts company. We have an installation at the theater with, I think, 16 female artists, which has gotten great reviews in the LA Times. We're producing this film, Black Terror, which is about revolution, which is based upon a play that was written 50 years ago by Richard Wesley. It was about revolution 50 years ago, and every word in that, nothing has been changed, and it's relevant today. Most nonprofits are reactionary groups that there's a problem and you try to help it and raise it up. I like to think of Waco as being as a proactive group that sees a problem and tries to get in front of it to prevent it from happening. Like the purpose of Black Terror the purpose of this is to get black people engaged in conversation about our own responsibility for ourselves. We take 100% of our resources and we give it to others. Money stays in our community for 6 hours. So we give 100% of our resources away and we blame them for 100% of our problems. I just got through playing Al Sharpton, Reverend Al Sharpton, which was a great time, about a true story about Sean Bell, who got shot at 50 times and killed on his wedding day in 2006. And I play Al Sharpton, who had a big part in that. And Al said, you know, there was a time when I was really mad at God, saying, how can you let 400 years of suffrage on black people? How can you do that, God? And he said, he pondered that for the longest time until it occurred to him that even the Bible says faith without works is dead. So what are the works? When you consider Ukraine and you consider, Toussaint Louverture and you consider other countries who fought for their freedom, well, what is our fight? We generate $2 trillion a year. That's power. That's the 10th largest country in the world, compared to.
Now you're speaking of black Americans.
Black Americans. And so for us to be able to take that money, having a sense of consciousness, changing the way we think, instead of looking at Gucci, Poochie, blah, 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 in terms of being,
right.
That we go and spend and we buy, that.
Or if we're going to buy it, let's create a black luxury brand, because I still have yet to see something of that stature in the world yet.
Right, creating a black luxury brand, creating a sense of building infrastructure, businesses, teaching young people to be grocers, so that we're not going to the Korean grocery store. No strike on Koreans, they established as their business, but there's no black grocery stores. And so how do we establish that? How do we create a black book where we are aware of where black businesses are, like the Green Book in the old days, you know?
And I have a question for you. I mean, what do you think about creating a dialogue of this sort between Africa and its diaspora?
I think it's an incredible and important dialogue to create, and for us to understand the symbiotic relationship between Africa and African Americans. I think it's important going forward, because I think one of the most important things is that, well, if we don't, and we look 20 years out, so according to Florida, to show this film in a HBCU in Florida is a felony.
But explain why, because not everybody here is maybe aware of what's going on in the United States. Let's back up a little bit and talk about this, they'll call it conservative movement in Florida, which is also very contagious in the rest of the United States.
It is.
And talk about what they're trying to do and what this means.
So the governor of Florida is passing laws that basically says to teach African American history in Florida is illegal. As a matter of fact, it's a felony to teach it in schools. He's expanding upon that and saying that
we can't talk about Latinos or Native Americans either.
Is that?
Yes, because they don't want to talk about the original genocide that cleared the land. They don't want to talk about the wars with Latins, and they certainly don't want to talk about the exploitation of black people, because this might make the children uncomfortable.
Of course. Which is to ignore history.
Well, you should be uncomfortable, because this is the reality of history, and if you don't do something about it, the struggle's never going to change. So it is a very sick idea that you can legislate the truth away,
right,
and make the rest of us shut up about the facts. And it's like, we're not going to do the same things to you that were done to us, because if we did, it would have been done a long time ago.
Right.
People just want to live properly.
Want to live properly, and so in that regard, I think, in terms of, we have to have a clarion call, if you will, the trumpets that alert people to conversation and discussion and dealing with the reality of looking at Florida and the actions that they're taking. If we don't proactively take care of ourselves in a certain kind of way, look years out, and what's that going to be like? What are our children going to miss out on?
Yeah, or worse, because we're talking about something where they're almost legislating and historically black colleges out of existence.
Exactly.
And these things existed in response to the absence of any concern for people being educated,
right,
on a higher level. Exactly.
So, I mean, that's part of my motivation, and I recognize it, and became very crystal clear when I went to Africa, which I would hope that every black American would take that trip, just so that you can get a sense of how different it is in terms of the conditions, in terms of history, in terms of where you came from. It's something like going home that settles something in your soul, where you recognize yourself to a degree, and then how that translates in terms of how you go forth in the world.
A question for you, because I mean, I've heard people speak of this, and I have not personally experienced it. Watch that. Yeah. We need to keep you here intact. But I've heard people say that there is friction between Africans from the Caribbean and the United States and Latin America and people from the continent, because there's resentment that they were sold out by their brethren. How do you feel about that statement, or even do you agree with it or disagree with it, or you think there's an issue to be solved?
I think everything. I think communication is the solvent for everything, and I think in terms of a lot of what information that is imparted through social media, through the media of any kind can be misinterpreted. And I think when you put people in a room and you start talking about the realities of things and you get human beings to engage, I think a lot of the ignorance and the misquoting and all of those things can be brought and flattened with communication. And I think that kind of dialogue is necessary.
So how did you evolve from an actor into a producer? I understand the theme and the motivation that you have. It's been very clear that you don't wait for other people to open the door.
Right. Well, being a producer was almost, something that was necessary. I recognized that I didn't have control of, the industry and the things that were written. I know that when I came up as an actor, when I read a script, my sensibilities went to the lead character, not number 57 or 68 on the call sheet, which was usually, stereotypical in some kind of way. And so I knew that in order for me to play the roles that I should be playing and that I was right for, that I had to create it,
right.
That I had to go and find it, and I had to write it myself, or I had to produce it. And so it became a natural outgrowth of my own dream and my own vision for myself, and not to accept the vision that the industry put on me. Here's an interesting thing. There's only one real group in the Screen Actors Guild, and all other groups are diversity groups. Black men, black women, white women. White men is the only group. Everybody else is a diversity group.
Okay, so then, so they're the normal, and the rest of everything else is. Okay.
Right. They're the featured. They're featured, but they're not starring in terms of just conceptually.
Right. Which is essentially the basis of Western culture.
Right. Exactly.
And that's just a reflection of it.
Yeah.
So this is what we're up against. Is that this is the normal and the rest is peripheral. Right.
And I'm not mad at it because of the fact that I understand it, that's the way it is, but that's not the way that I have to operate on my own. I don't have to buy that concept and that reality in order for me to have a full, complete, satisfying career. You know what I mean? That's based upon my control. I'm not at effect to the business. I'm in control of the business.
But this is absolutely brilliant. I mean, you don't spend your life knocking on a door. You can knock until your hand falls off and it may never open.
Right.
So it's it's all about creating your own opportunities.
Exactly.
And whatever that means. I mean, partnering. I mean, I think we're in an era right now where we're sitting in a room like this where there's so many different cultures in this room and so many opportunities within any kind of mixture of collaborations here. Stories of people who have discovered their genetic roots and go back. That could be a fascinating thing to explore. Or, we have in the United States a little bit of everything in the world. So, the old world versus the new world could be a fascinating story.
Absolutely.
That could be a drama or a comedy or both.
Absolutely. I was saying to you last night, I think the world would be a completely different place if everyone took a 23andMe test and you all would find out how much black you actually have in you, or you would be a mixture of things, and all of a sudden you would not be able to hold on to your righteous ethnicity. The world is a potpourri.
And it is. I mean, at the end of the day, ethnicity is a bit of a construct.
It's a construct.
I mean, the idea of white and black is kind of diminishing to all the details that go inside of those things.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And anyway, we could go on about that. But I think it's almost time to see if the audience might have any questions for Mr. Lawson or statements.
Yeah, my name is Gunnar Holme, an actor from Sweden, and it was interesting you said that you don't know the background because everyone tell me, oh, you can't be Swedish, you're supposed to be blonde and blue eyes. so
you're proving the point.
Yeah. And maybe people think I'm like French or Greek or Turkish or something like that. So maybe my ancestors are from there. I don't know.
People get around.
Yeah.
So go and find out.
Yeah, I will. I'm gonna do a test, generic test and see.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another subject for a panel next year.
Yeah.
Because we all think we're one thing, and then
Yeah.
the truth comes out. I mean,
Yeah.
I was certainly surprised when I saw what I was made of.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I can't really hate anybody because I'm kind of everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a human being anyway.
And then at the end of the day, there you have it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Sir.
oh.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Me too.
Yeah, I'm finished. Yeah, I didn't
I thought you were Swedish, not Finnish. Yeah, my name is Sydney. I'm an actor, storyteller from Sweden as well. I'm not Swedish, as you can see. My question for you, Mr. Richard, is what is the legacy you want to leave for the afterworld? Because I think it's a lot of things, but is it something particular you're thinking about? Like, this is what I will be remembered for. And this is important for me to especially for your students, to carry on.
Yes. I fashion myself as a dream weaver. My whole intention in life is to help people to realize their dreams. So that's the whole premise of my school. The first thing that happens there is, before I can teach you, is that the question is, what is your dream? And if I understand what your dream is, then I can help you to carve that out. And so I think one example of that for me, and really is kind of like a full circle moment, is that I have a class where I put a camera in people's hands and I teach them how to become filmmakers. Not to be the next Spike Lee or Ava DuVernay, but to be able to become a better artist. Because if you are a filmmaker and you are producing your own short little films, you'll never be late again, you'll always be on time, you'll be a better actor, you'll be a better storyteller, right? So 2 of my students.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to. You're making such an important point. When you understand your place in the entirety of a production, thank you, it changes your level of respect for what's being done.
No question.
And you're not just saying from my point of view, I'm in my trailer until you call me.
Right.
You understand the value of everything that's happening there.
You understand.
And it's all telling the story.
Yes. In the old days, the people who ran the studio started in the mailroom.
Right.
So they worked their way up to being the president of the company. And so the president of a company then understands how the whole dynamic works. So as an actor, if I understand the whole dynamic of it, if I'm producing my little short film and I ask you to be one of the actors and your call time is at 9 and you don't show up until 9:30, you basically are killing my day.
Everybody else is going to wait.
And everybody's got to wait. And if you break down the budget of a film and you look at the amount of time that you have to shoot that film, you can realize that that film costs X amount of dollars per minute. For every minute you're late, you are burning up money. So anyway, the 2 students who took classes 10 years ago, 6 years ago, now, and in that class, they originated a film. These 2 students have films that are showing here at Cannes. So the sense of satisfaction for me that I operated on do as I do, not as I say, but do as I do, follow me, they've done that. And if I can be of that influence where someone's life is better, where their dream has been realized because of what the influence is, then, there's no greater satisfaction. And for me now, because of what I want to see happen with getting people into discussion about us as a people and how we go forward, is again, do as I do. And hopefully we'll be an influence for us as a people to be at cause over our own destiny.
A dream to a plan and a plan to action.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Your last question.
Thank you. My name is Lola Lee Thompson. I'm a Canadian filmmaker. So my question to you is, well, thank you for sharing all of this. My question is, I understand the process, being an actor, being a producer and all of that, and taking charge of your life. But then there comes a challenge of how do you find the money, even as a producer, to produce your work. And I guess some of the things you run into is, okay, I have a project, I'm trying to find the money, you're trying to, and you have to go through all the packaging phases and stuff like that. So what are the challenges that you face? How do you find money? And I don't know if I'm asking too much of a question for you.
No, listen, it's a very important question.
Right, because when you go to the market, then one of the things I find is even when you want to incorporate black people and you're talking to certain executives or stuff, then they tell you there's no market value, and then you're like, you know, how do you overcome that?
Right. Keep looking. Just never give up. Never give up. Keep knocking on doors. There's no quit. There's no quit. Some projects take 10, 15 years. But if you're pregnant with your idea, then there is no stop. You have to be like water. Water, at the end of the day, is going to be the last thing on this planet because it's going to overcome anything. You have to be able to go around it, over it, through it. You come upon the China wall. You don't let it stop you. It's just a challenge. Because if you're pregnant with this idea, if you understand the concept of it, that nothing is going to stop you. There is no. No is not an option. You just keep knocking on doors, turning over every single rock, and not being impatient about it. The problem with most people is that time becomes an issue because you think there's an expectation that you should have this tomorrow. Well, it may be next year or it may be next year, but you just don't give up.
I want to add to that because I think there's oftentimes with the creative world, there is an absence of the responsibility that you actually need to educate yourself in finance. Because at the end of the day, you're asking people for millions of dollars, so you need to have some kind of an actual foundation that gives you credibility. If you haven't bothered to study terminology or even go to seminars and really train yourself and or partner with somebody who actually understands wealth and how to use it and how to get it back. Because at the end of the day, the people want to know, I want a long-term partnership with you. So if you're going to handle my $1 million and you're going to bring me 1.5, we're talking again. If you come back to me and say, I'm sorry I lost your money because I didn't know what I was doing, we're done. And you also poison the well for every other independent filmmaker who is equally unprepared because I'm not pointing at you, but I think that I had to learn that myself. It's like, this is my dream. Nobody gives a damn about my dream. What they want to know, their dream is getting their money back. So let's make both of those dreams match up. Sure. So if you're not ready, learn. I think, I don't know how much, because we have this question, I don't know if we have two more, but this gentleman.
Hi, my name is Cyril Julien. I'm French and I run an advisory boutique in London. I used to live in the States in the 80s, and at the time I felt that the US felt like one people, one nation. 30 years later, it feels like the US has never been as divided. There is lots of hatred. I mean, it feels like a nation at war with itself. And now, here's my question. When we feel that, and it's the same thing in France, that the word of politicians are so divisive, what should influential people, and I'm thinking in terms of top entertainers, actors, singers in Hollywood and in the rest of the US who appear to have influence with the people that admire them, what should they be doing, or what could they be doing to bring the nation back together from the brink where it stands? Thank you.
Okay. There's a lot in that question. The first thing that I recognize is that you say in the 80s it felt like one nation together, undivided. And perhaps from your perspective, that's what you saw, but this nation has never had that. It's never been that, you know, one nation undivided. We've been fighting for years in one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty, and that has never existed. But we know that. And so therefore, one of the most effective things in order to bring change and to bring togetherness on some level, or at least in groups, has been through art. Art is the most powerful communicator in the world, and it's immediate. And so therefore, through the use of art and through the use of storytelling, and then using all the other aspects of marketing, of having a reality about money and where money comes from, getting people to invest in your idea and to become as pregnant in your idea and your dream as you are, so that your project can make a difference and can do something to move the needle in terms of culture. The biggest problem today is that we have all these silos of beliefs, you know, and groups that are self-interested in serving their own interests. That's the biggest problem in terms of trying to, it's like, who are you communicating to? And maybe that group can become strong enough to influence and become bigger. And so I believe the answer is through art, that we can make a difference where we can. There's no one blanket way to do it. The thing that I'm trying to do is to get people in communication at least recognize what's in front of us so we can take responsibility to do something. And that's going to be a huge task in and of itself.
Hi, nice to meet you, and thank you for the conversation, Richard and Steven. My name is Yusuf. I'm an actor, French actor. Thank you for the advices and sharing your career. My question is, when will we can see your last film?
This is screening. This is screening on the 23rd, next Tuesday, at the Pavilion Afrique, the African Pavilion, at 4 o'clock. You can see this film then. I don't know what you have to do for tickets or for admission. Maybe somebody can say, I don't know. But show up at 4 o'clock on Tuesday.
There'll be a seat.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate your time and your attention, and thank you, Richard, for all your amazing commentary.
Thank you.
Yes, great.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Much love is what we need upon us. Let them come together with the unity among us. UNITY, it's a unity. Yana, this a good work, you know what I'm saying?
Umoja ni nguvu, utengano udhaifu, tukisimama. Jitoe